How's it going? Man, I'm excited to be here today. My name is Ben. I'm one of the pastors here. Specifically, I hang out in Grampian a lot. I'm the Grampian campus pastor. But every now and then, I just get the opportunity to come and just share and have a time with all of our campuses, all over, everywhere, online, everywhere. And so I'm super excited to be here today. And so we're in this series called Brain Freeze, and it's all about, just checking our mind and kind of figuring out what is going on. And last week we talked about some negative zones. And let me just tell you, man, this week I just experienced a negative zone. And let me give you a little example of that. So this past week, Melissa, my wife, and I, we just got back from vacation, and it was just a great vacation. We haven't had a vacation really since we moved here like almost 2 years ago, which is crazy to think that we've been here almost 2 years now. But we went out to California. We have some friends out there. We used to live out there, and so we went out to California, and we had some friends. Their sister was getting married, so we went and shared that experience with them. And it was great, obviously. We got to spend time with friends. But my favorite part was the weather was just beautiful. I mean, high 70s, low 80s, no humidity. So it's like you walked outside and you were just surrounded with like this warm sunshine blanket. And it was just amazing, right? And so Tuesday, as we were packing up that morning to get ready to come back to Antarctica, I'm just thinking like, right? Like I just know. Like I'm checking the weather all week long because we had someone watching our house, so I wanted to make sure nothing like froze up or nothing like got horrible, so we didn't come home to a disaster. And so, I'm riding on the plane, we're flying back, and I'm just getting bummed, right? Like this negative zone, knowing like I just love this beautiful weather, and I'm coming back to this freezing weather, and it's going to be horrible. And some of you don't mind that, right? Some of you like the cold. Some of you like snow and all that stuff, and you're entitled to that opinion, no matter how wrong you are. Some of you love it. I'm not one of those people. I grew up in the South. My blood runs thin. I do not like the cold. I like snow for a little bit, and then I like for it to go away. But that's okay. And so my wife, being the awesome wife that she is, she actually found this article the day before we left. And this article is entitled, "The Norwegian Secret to Enjoying a Long Winter." And so she's like, you need to read this. You got to read this. And I was like, all right. So I opened it up, and I'm, kind of scrolling through it, reading about this area in Norway, right? Tromsø. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it. For the sake of today, that's how you pronounce it. And it talked about how this girl, she was a PhD student in Stanford, and she went and spent a winter in this region of Norway. And this region of Norway is so far north. It's like one of those areas like from like late November to late January, right? The sun doesn't even come above the horizon. Now, if that was me, I'd be like, just wake me up when it's over, because I don't want any part of it. I don't even get to see the sun. I get upset when the sun's hidden behind a cloud here, and so I'm like, I just don't want any part of it. But what this student found out, is that the levels of like seasonal depression, man, we know that's real, right? We can feel that during this time of year, but the levels of seasonal depression in this region were far less than any other region around. And there are some factors that went into this. Like it was a very close-knit community, so that definitely plays into it a lot. But one of the main things that she found was this. She said that the people view winter as something to be enjoyed, not something to be endured. And I just think, that's crazy. It's a crazy thought. And so here's what I thought. Here's what I determined to do this winter. I said, you know what? I'm going to look for the things that I enjoy doing that I can only enjoy doing in winter. So like these people, they love the fact they couldn't wait to go skiing. They couldn't wait to wrap up in big fuzzy blankets close to the ones they love. They couldn't wait to just drink hot beverages all day long. And so I am determined this winter, it hasn't helped yet, but I am determined this winter to look for the things I enjoy. So one of the things I enjoy, I love sitting by my fire and reading books and just drinking coffee all day long. Not that I drink coffee all day long in the summer too, but that's besides the point. But drinking coffee all day long and just enjoying my warm house and being cozy and just enjoying that. Another thing I enjoy, and this is going to sound weird to you guys, because you're going to be like, this isn't a winter thing, this is a summer thing, but this is one, I love it in the winter too. So one thing I love to do in the winter is get all toasty, get the house all warm, put a good movie on, and then I like to go get a big old bowl of ice cream. right? Get that big old bowl of ice. There's just something about like it being cold outside, but warm in your house. And so you have to have something cold that cools you down. So I get this nice big bowl of ice cream. I just sit there and binge on some movies and just eat down my chunky chocolate or whatever I got going on. And so here's what we're going to do. I'm sure some of you love ice cream. Everybody loves ice cream. Like, who am I kidding? Unless you're like lactose intolerant, and that's different. But everybody loves ice cream. So we're gonna give away a pint of ice cream today for one lucky individual. And so this is across all of our campuses, online. Look to the chat. They'll tell you how you can win some ice cream. But here's what we're gonna do. Obviously, there's a great rhyme, right? Ice cream. You scream, we all scream for ice cream, right? And so on the count of three, when I count to three, here in the room, all of our campuses, when I count to three, whoever yells the loudest will get a pint of ice cream to take home and enjoy by the fire later today. So, okay, ready? Ready? Here we go. 1, 2, 3. Whoa, back in the, right there. There's our winner back in the back. Sir, you get it. Woo, yes. All right, give them a round of applause. Yeah, definitely. Across all our campuses, who's the loudest? Your leader's gonna get you your ice cream, so you definitely, good job. That was fantastic. All right, so people love ice cream. Now, there's just something to that idea, though, right, of changing the way we think. Just that simple idea of, hey, I'm going to enjoy winter and not just endure it. And we get this idea because we see this a lot, right? We see that, all throughout our life, right? We are bombarded with ways of how we think and social norms of how we should act in certain situations and just how that is all set up, right? Last week we talked that we have to learn to direct it to protect it, right? We have to direct it to protect. We have to direct our thoughts towards God so that He can protect our minds and allow us to shape us and to form us into who He wants us to be. We have to direct it to protect it. And we've seen this all throughout history, all throughout century. That's why Paul tells the church of Philippi, he says to them that in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. Right? So in your relationships with one another, have the same mindset as Christ Jesus. And whatever we do in our relationships, in our work, and whatever we do, if we have the same mindset as Jesus, right, it helps us to direct our thoughts and to protect our thoughts into doing that. There's an Old Testament scholar, his name is Walter Brueggemann, which is, just by that name, you know he's like a genius. And he came up with this thought. He was asked a couple of years ago to speak to a group of leaders, of church leaders, and he brought with him a working document that he called his 19 Theses. And these 19 Theses, they were coming up with this kind of idea of just some scholarly work that he'd been doing and some observations he has had throughout his years of ministry and throughout his years of teaching. And basically what this 19 Theses were was just things that he was convicted about, saying, like, this is something that we need to address within our churches, within our walk with Jesus. And so he comes up with these 19. I'm not going to go through all 19 because that would take too long, but I'm just going to hit on the first couple of ones. So the first one was this. He says that everybody lives by a script. Everybody lives by a script, right? Whatever that is. And we have some kind of value system, some kind of convictions that we said, we're going to live by this. Maybe it was how you were raised or whoever raised you in that sense, but everybody lives by a script. The second point was that we get scripted. Right, whether we realize it or not, whether we intentionally script it ourselves or whether someone else scripts it for us, but we live by this script. We don't live in a vacuum. We live in a culture that says, oh, you should think this way, or you should act this way, or you should believe this way, and we get scripted by the people around us and the interactions and the experiences that we have. And then the third one is, he actually says this is the main script that, as he's an American theologian and thinker, so he says, in America, from my observations, the main script that I see our people, whether they're in church or not church, because they live by this script, a script of technological, therapeutic, consumer militarism. Now, that's a lot. I'm going to break that down a little bit. So by this term technological, he's just basically saying that every problem that we have, we believe that we can fix with human ingenuity. That eventually, right, whatever it is, no matter how big it is, no matter how complex it is, eventually we'll come up with a solution. By therapeutic, he's just talking about that there's a pattern, there's a process, there is something that we can get to alleviate us of any pain that we might have. And we think about that, right? That's true, right? If we have a headache, we take Tylenol. If you watch any kind of TV or even online stream stuff, you see advertisements for, hey, take this drug and your life will be better, or go buy this and you'll be happy, or whatever it is. And we look for all these different processes to help us feel better. And then this consumer militarism, it kind of ties it all together. So the idea of consumer is just that, we're gonna take whatever we need to survive without regard to our neighbor. We're going to make sure we're going to buy it up. We're going to live in this kind of level of scarcity, saying like, I need to have it. I got to have it. And if I don't have it, then I'm not going to be happy. And so we will do whatever it takes, whatever resources out there is mine for the taking without regard to anyone else. And this militarism idea this has nothing to do with like the military or the armed forces. He's just saying that we will fight and fight and fight to keep what we have without regard to anyone else. And so he goes through all this and he explains this, and he eventually says, this script has failed. The script has failed. And you can agree with this or disagree with this. I don't care. I didn't come up with it, so you're not going to hurt my feelings. But ultimately, the idea is that he's like, this script has failed. And if we think about this, this is true for our lives, right? I mean, have you ever been unhappy? Have you ever been in a place where you just said, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know what my life purpose is. I don't know where I'm going to find fulfillment from. And no matter what you've done, you've kind of been inside the world. You've done everything that the world told you that you should do. You've done everything. You've followed every pattern. You've bought stuff. Whatever you've done it to fill your life, to find fulfillment, but yet you still come up empty. Maybe you fight for it and fight for it and fight for it, but ultimately the script has failed. So what do you do? Well, Jesus says there's a better way to reshape our thinking in order to live by a different script. And the Apostle Paul, he realizes this, and he's talking to this church in Corinth. And in 2 Corinthians, he's talking to him, and he's like, look, this is how you need to reorganize your thoughts in order to direct your thoughts towards God. So in 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 3, he says, although we live in the world, we don't fight our battles with human methods. Right? Paul recognized, hey, we're human. Right? We live in this world, we raise families in this world, we work in this world, we do business in this world, but despite living in this world, we're not going to fight our battles as the world fights them. We're going to fight them differently. He goes on to say, our weapons that we fight with aren't human, but instead they are powered by God for the destruction of fortresses. Now, most of you know what a fortress is. I mean, usually, it's a structure that is built to defend, or people gather in it to hunker down and to be safe, right? And so you have these fortresses, and Paul's not talking about like a physical fortress. He's talking about these kind of mind fortresses that we kind of hunker down in, right? And it's easy for us to kind of script this narrative that we want to live by and say, look, this is how I want to live. I'm going to hunker down in this fortress, and you can't tear it down. But the thing is, when we hunker down into these fortresses, we freeze our thoughts into thoughts that are often not effective, right? We're frozen into patterns of thinking that are ineffective. And so we're frozen into these patterns, and it's hard for us to get out of them or to even recognize that they're being destructive, or that they're allowing us to lead us away from people that we love, or lead us away from God. And so we work within these patterns of thinking that are not effective. And for many of us, I don't know what that is for you. I don't know what those frozen thoughts are for you, but there's kind of 5 big ones that I kind of picked out. I'm going to share them with you. And I don't think this is necessarily an exhaustive list. You might deal with different frozen thoughts than this, but I think for the most part, the frozen thoughts that we have in our mind that just kind of entrap us and keep us just ensnared will fall into one of these categories. So the first one is this: material thoughts. These thoughts go something like this: if I only had blank, I'd be happy. Right? If I only had a new house or a new car, or if I only had a better job that paid more, then I would be happy. Or maybe it's not necessarily gaining something more. Maybe it's getting rid of something. So maybe it's, man, if I could only pay off this loan, it'd be better. If I could only get rid of this debt in my life, then I would feel more secure. Whatever it is, I don't know. Maybe for some of you, it's just that idea of like, when I'm sad or I'm down, I need something to pick me up. Oh, I'm going to go shopping. And I'm going to buy more stuff. And maybe you end up spending money that you don't have, or maybe you do have the money, but you find your worth and you find your value in the things that you own. Because like shopping's not bad in itself, right? It's okay to treat yourself every now and then. But when we take the things that we own and the material things that we own, and we say, man, these are what are going to define me. These are what are going to give me value in life. That's where our thought pattern becomes destructive. Second one is this. Second one is addictive thoughts. Now, when we hear the word addictive, we automatically think substance abuse. Right, and that's definitely part of it. And that's the easy one, right? Whether it's tobacco or alcohol or illegal drugs or legal drugs or whatever it is that's just ensnaring you, right? And people have continued to tell you, man, these are going to mess up your life. They're going to destroy your relationships. They're going to continue to break you down. And that's definitely part of it. Right, but then there's other addictive thoughts, right, that, well, they're not as hard to pinpoint. Because you see, some of these addictive thoughts, it's just like, well, they're actually celebrated within our society. Or they're actually encouraged. For instance, some of you are addicted to work. And our society celebrates this. We say, hey, you should have a hard work ethic, and you should work hard, you should produce more, you should do more. But the fact is some of us are so addicted to our work that we work so much at the expense of our families. Right? And we justify that by saying, you know what, I'm doing this for the ones I love so they can have what they want, so they can be taken care of. But what they really want is for you to be present and for you to be near and to share experiences with them. So some addictive thoughts are hard to find. Another one of these thoughts is physical thoughts. And these usually kind of attack ourselves personally, and these thoughts go something like this. They usually sound like, man, only if I was only thinner, if I only had more muscle, if I only had didn't have this face or whatever it is. Maybe you're like, maybe I wish I had less hair, or maybe I wish I had more hair. I don't know. Trust me, it's not that great. And you just think, man, if I just had these things, if I just had more of this, or I look different, then I'd be happier. If I could get rid of this physical element, then life would be better. And we get caught up in this idea of these thoughts that, man, if I just look the right way, then things will be better. Things will work out. I'll be more accepted. I'll be more invited. I'll fit in. And we allow these physical thoughts to tear us down, to continue to entrench us into a horrible way of thinking. The next thought pattern is this: relational thoughts. And this is a big one. Right? Like I could say, I think all of us today could say, yes, I have had some frozen thoughts in this category. Right? Some people are just bitter. Some people are just angry. Some people are just critical. And whether you're like that just because it seems like you're naturally like that, or whether it's because someone has hurt you, right? You continue to have these frozen thoughts of just bitterness towards people. And hate towards people, and just saying like, I can't be around these people. And you put up walls to say, look, I'm not going to get close to people because I don't want to get hurt. Maybe for some of us, you're married and you look like you have this awesome, perfect marriage on the outside, and people are always like, oh, you look so great and you're so pretty and such a cute couple. But when you get home, it's just empty. Right? You forgot how to be intimate with your spouse, and you forgot how to share moments with them and to communicate with them. And well, they don't really feel like a spouse at all anymore. They just feel like a roommate in your house. Maybe for some of you, you're not married, but you want to be, but every time you get close to somebody, you end up self-destructing everything. You've been hurt so many times, and you've been abandoned or abused so many times where you say, look, I'm gonna put up these walls and not allow you to get close to me so that I can't be hurt anymore. And instead of being hurt, you end up being the one doing the hurting. Those are real things, right? Those are things that we have to come to terms with and have to say, look, God, how do I rearrange my thinking to think differently about this and these relational thoughts? This last one, I think, is probably the biggest one. And I would even say that this last one, the spiritual thoughts, it shapes and it interacts and forms with all these other thoughts in some shape or form. And at the bottom line, of these frozen spiritual thoughts that we might just need to get rid of. The bottom line is that we just don't trust God. We just don't trust God. And I don't know what that looks like in your life. For some, if you find yourself that you're just the person that wants to be in control, you're the person that has to have everything figured out, and so you manipulate situations and you manipulate people so that everything works out to your advantage instead of allowing God to take it and say, look, God, I'm going to allow you to have this and take control of this and for you to work it out for your glory. You end up keeping that control. For some of you, it's the fact that, I don't trust God, so I'm not going to trust his people. Some of you have been hurt by people, by church people or people who claim to follow Jesus, and you don't want any part of that, and so you've kind of created this huge stereotype of what all church people are like, and if that's who they're like, I don't want nothing to do with that. And if we're honest with ourselves, there's some of us that don't even trust me. Right? You've been hurt by somebody in church leadership or somebody with authority within a church, and you said, I don't want any part of that, and whatever your hurt and your pain is with that, and whether it's projecting it upon me as I talk, I just want to say sorry. Sorry for your hurt, sorry for your pain, sorry for what you had to experience in the past. But when we allow those thoughts to continue to shape how we live our lives and how we continue to interact with one another, then it continues to lead to isolation, to loneliness, to brokenness. And we just don't know what to do. So after these, all these thoughts, we look at these, and Paul continues to tell us that these weapons that we fight with, right? He gives us hope. He says, these weapons that we fight with that aren't human but are powered by God, they destroy argument and every defense that is raised up to oppose the knowledge of God. They capture every thought to make it obedient to Christ. They capture every thought to make it obedient to Christ. And if we're honest with ourselves, man, we've dealt with all these different things. Maybe you whatever your fortress is, whatever your frozen thought is, maybe it's how you look, maybe it's how some thoughts within your relationships, maybe it's just the things that you own, or whatever it is. The point is to take those thoughts, to capture those thoughts, and direct them towards God. To direct it, to protect it. If I'm honest with myself, I've experienced frozen thoughts in all those categories in my life. All of them. Right? I've had times when I've wondered, God, can I even trust you? You have me in this particular situation, but God, I don't see any joy in this. I don't see any promise in this. I don't see any fulfillment in this. So why am I here? Can I trust you on that, God? I've been hurt by people who claim to follow Jesus, and can I trust those people? I can even say, even in a physical thought, right? Growing up, I was always like the skinny twig kind of kid. And so, I thought, only if I could get a little bit bigger, put a little more bulk on, put a little muscle on, maybe I'd be more competitive, maybe I'd be seen as more of an athlete or whatever it was. And so I had to deal with those thoughts as I grew up. And if I'm honest right now, even today, I still continue with those thoughts. Right now, for me, my struggle is I still have to think about my contentment. And so I went through school. I got my bachelor's degree and my master's degree, and I wasn't the best student, so it took me a while. So I accumulated a lot of student debt. And so to me, I think, man, if I could just pay off my student debt, things would be easier. If I could just get rid of it, man, life would be so much easier. But that's not really the truth. Because there'll always be something else, right? And at the heart of wanting to get rid of it, at the heart of that is just me having a fear of being a failure and not being able to provide for myself and my family. So there's always something underneath. There's always some thought that's driving that fear, that's driving that motivation to get rid of it and to get rid of it. And so whatever those thoughts are in your mind, whatever those thoughts are, whether it's the thoughts in our minds that say, you know what, hey, I'm not good enough, I'm not pretty enough, I'm not worthy enough, or I'm not a good mom, or I'm not a good dad, or I'm not a good son or daughter, or whether it's, I don't have enough, or I need more, or I don't know if I can trust God, or I don't know if I can get rid of that addiction in my life, or I don't know if I can truly find freedom in the things that chain me down. Paul's saying is like, no. Capture those thoughts. Capture those thoughts and direct them to God. And here's why it's so important, so important that we capture those thoughts and direct them to God. It's because your life is always moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. Your life is always moving in the direction of your strongest thoughts. And so if your strongest thought is that you're not good enough, your life is heading in a direction that relates to that. If your strongest thought is that, hey, I'm not pretty enough, or I'm not good enough, or I don't have enough money, or I don't have this, your life is going to reflect that. If your thought is, I don't know if I can trust God or trust his people or trust him to truly take care of my life, then your life is going to reflect that. And on the flip side, man, if your strongest thought is knowing that I am a child of God who is deeply loved, who is deeply cared for by my Father, then your life will go in a direction that reflects that. See, all throughout life, we have to make these choices of how are we going to perceive things? How are we going to shape our perception in order to allow God to lead us as we go? So I'm going to give you two challenges as you walk away today. And these challenges, they're going to sound easy. They're going to sound easy, but let me tell you, they're going to be super hard. It's going to take some thought. It's going to take some diligence in it. There might even be a little pain involved in it. But here it is. First one, identify your frozen thoughts. What are those thoughts in your life? What is it? Is it a material thought? Is it a physical thought? Is it a spiritual thought, a relational thought, or one of the thoughts we discussed? Maybe it's a totally different thought altogether. What are those thoughts in your life that keep you from being who God wanted you to be? What are those thoughts in your life that continue to just hammer you down to where you feel like you can't get up and continue on in life? What are those thoughts? I would even encourage you, don't even have that discussion just with yourself. Seek someone out that you trust, right? Because often the people that we love and that trust and that love us, they'll be honest with us. Ask them, hey, what are these frozen thoughts in my mind that tend to hold me up? Help me walk through that. Help me work through that. What are those frozen thoughts? The second one is this. Defrost those thoughts. Now, it'd be simple if we could just stick them in the microwave for like 5 minutes, right? That'd be great. But we can't. So to defrost those thoughts. So if one of your thoughts is, man, I don't know if I can trust God. Maybe I got to make sure that I'm in control and that I have everything under control. Maybe your step to defrost is just to say, you know what, God, I'm going to give this to you. I'm going to do my part. I'm going to do what you've asked me to do, what you called me to do, and I'm going to step back and let you take control and let you figure it out. If your thoughts is one of those thoughts that like, man, I don't know if I have what I need, if I don't have enough money, or if I don't have everything I need to look nice, maybe your thought is just say, you know what? I'm going to be content with what I have. I'm going to be content with what I have. Maybe if your thoughts are grounded in addiction, you say, you know what? I'm going to seek help. I'm going to find some recovery for that. If your addiction is work, I'm going to take a day off. I'm going to take 2 days off and spend time with those who I love. Whatever it is, defrost those thoughts. Next week, we're going to talk more about how we just renew our mind and shape our mind into continuing to allow us to direct our thoughts to who God wants us to be. Would you pray with me? God, we just thank you for who you are. We thank you for knowing more than we will ever know. We thank you for guiding us and protecting us. But God, we know that even though you promised us that you're there, God, there are still thoughts in our head that frees us. God, that hunker us down to where sometimes we don't think like we can go anywhere else but how these thoughts shape our life. But God, we just want to ask for your help. God, to reveal the frozen thoughts in our minds that continue to separate us from you, to separate us from others, that continue to just hold us captive. God, that you would give us the power and the strength through your Spirit to defrost those, to allow us to just to follow you and to be who you created us to be. God, reveal those to us in our life. We'll just give you the glory. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.